Spiral wizard is basically somebody who can recognize what level in the spiral each person is at, where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and how to guide them in a way where they can continue to contribute, and as their life situation changes, they can move up the spiral. I was actually pretty lucky. I went with, I think it was Max, Brad Branson, also known as Weight Alters, taught at the time, myself, and my ex-girlfriend Carly. We actually were able to attend a spiral dynamics seminar in Santa Barbara with Don Beck. It was a really cool experience. He was an older guy. I'm not even sure if he's still around. And he had actually blown most of his money. It's called Spiral Dynamics, by the way. Don Beck, I think the guy there had mentioned that Don had blown a lot of his cash actually traveling to work with Nelson Mandela in South Africa as they were rebuilding it after apartheid. I'm not really sure the full background on that, but I think it is probably true. And if you actually look at the South African flag, this is what I heard, but please don't quote me on this because it could be wrong. Part of why they put all the colors into it was to respect the spiral. So I thought that was kind of a very cool thing. The other thing that I learned that was a bit of a more somber note, but it's still a worthwhile lesson, so I'd just like to share it anyway, because I think we can learn from anything, is that Don, I think, had, because he'd worked so hard and maybe not saved a ton of cash as he got older, I think that he was doing that seminar really when he was probably a little bit too old to be doing that seminar. I think that he probably should just be enjoying his retirement at that point. So definitely reminded me as a teacher that, you do get older and you have to prepare for that. So that was another thing that I would recommend, that I learned from Don Beck, just seeing what he was dealing with, because such an incredible teacher. And another thing, this was sort of a downside, was that I actually really wanted to share more of his content in like some videos. And it's funny, that kind of older paradigm of information where they think that the IP, the intellectual property, is the main thing, when in fact really it's the leads that's the biggest thing. You can walk into a Barnes and Noble, there's content just absolutely everywhere. Content is abundant. Lead bases and movements and stuff is rare. So I was like, hey, I'd love to share this on my channel. And they're like, oh, would you pay us for the content? I was like, it's okay. I'm good. So that was kind of another funny thing, was that I didn't really get a chance to promote them like I like, because they're in a more of an older mindset, not realizing with social media, it's more about getting the ideas out. So you might have seen that with, say, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk, he has a book called The Thank You Economy, and just encourages you to get stuff out there. So that was another lesson that I had. But it was a beautiful experience in Santa Barbara in 2014 that I was able to attend the seminar. It was a dense book, so I actually sought out. And by the way, what are you guys talking about India? Guys, you got to focus on something positive. Anyway, so basically what it is that, the book was dense and it was hard to read, but I went out of my way because I could see that this was something really good. And I went out of my way to seek out teachers. I always seek out teachers. I seek out mentors. I'm always looking to take courses and learn more. I feel like you could just really never stop learning. So even when I read a book that I could tell was very powerful, and I didn't have, the opportunity to just fully understand it, I sought out teachers and wanted to take it to another level. So that's my quick lesson on spiral dynamics and the general spiral. I hope that also that casts some light on some of the division that you'll see in politics between, the coastal elites and the people that are more conservative. There's actually a lot to that subject matter. You can watch Tim Pool. If you've ever seen Tim Pool, he has incredible content on that. But I think that that insight about spiral dynamics is actually quite powerful as far as the liberal conservative thing that you see. One of my biggest disappointment in politics right now is that it's very unfortunate what I see, where the whole idea of politics, that you're supposed to be able to talk about it and share your views and give people a voice. And the idea is that everybody's perspective is going to be different. Everybody's going to see things from a different angle, and everybody has something to contribute to the dialogue. So the cool thing is, whether you're a liberal or it's Tim Pool, by the way, he's amazing. So it's Timpool. He was on Joe Rogan a lot lately. In his content, he covers the left-wing, right-wing thing very well. And yes, of course, I've read the Kabbalion. So the main thing that I think that would be added to the political dialogue in this day and age is that back in the day, you could kind of talk about it. And, if somebody was, say, a Democrat, you wouldn't call them necessarily like a communist. Or if somebody's a Republican, you wouldn't claim that they're a Nazi or something like that. So the biggest thing is that I've seen a lot of this kind of division in politics where people can't talk to each other anymore. And I feel like they don't make an effort to understand the other person's side of the argument. I think anytime that you have an opinion on something, you really want to understand the other side of the argument very, very well. You want to be able to understand the argument as well, if not better, than the person who has the flip side of the coin. For example, we have a lot of stuff to do where we've done a lot of dating advice for guys. And then, there's this whole other feminist perspective, and they'll look at that and they'll kind of interpret our stuff in a very strange way that I don't really feel like reflects what it is that we're teaching. We're trying to teach shy guys some dating stuff. Very healthy, very, very powerful, and makes them into whole men who bring a lot to the table. One of the first things when I started to see that feminist stuff coming up, actually that was around 2014 too, was to read it, to understand it, to go to groups where they were helping women and things like that. Now notice I don't even talk about that. It was something I did not to go talk about it or to make a spectacle, but I just want to give that as a quick example. It was something that I did to educate and edify myself. And I definitely understood the lens through which they were seeing it, or even seeing our content. And I could see how from the experiences that they were having and the things that they were seeing on a day-to-day that's really messed up, they could see it in a different way that, of course, doesn't reflect anything to do with what we're doing, but I could see how they would have that, you call that a RAS, reticular activation system. So, again, it was very important for me to see that other side of the coin. And I really try to do that with anything. Even with my own philosophy that we teach in our content, I'm always looking to pick it apart, to see a different point of view. You'll notice that a lot of time we bring in different styles of teaching as far as our teachers and bring in different viewpoints. For example, I heard about social circle instead of say cold approach or something like that. I made sure to, I spent several years seeking out someone who I thought could teach that at a high level. That was Luke. So rather than saying I'm right, you're wrong, I try to understand that other person's opinion and integrate that. And I also really try to understand where, the basic background of where that person's coming from, what their viewpoint is, and what value I could get from that and how to integrate that rather than being oppositional. So that was a little bit about spiral dynamics, a quick book review of that, and I hope that gave you some insight, things that you can use. And yes, I've definitely read Fred Dawson and Reality Transurfing. Patrick Sargis, those are books in the genre of the idea of spiritual growth. And what up, Sam? Those are books in the genre of spiritual growth and things like whether you call that manifestation or the law of attraction or things like that. And I think they're very powerful to read those books. If you read those books, actually my recommendation to you is rather than going deeper down that track, again, take my advice here of seeing the opposite side. Look at the opposite. Maybe you could read Principles by Ray Dalio, or you could read Good to Great by Jim Collins, or The E-Myth Revisited, Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, books like that. So I think it's very, very good to kind of go back and forth. And of course, what do I think about The Art of Seduction? That's Robert Greene. He did a guest appearance with Julian, so therefore, anything that Robert Greene does, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. And I think he's an amazing author. So basically what you have is that, and look up the video with Julian, by the way. It's on the Julian himself channel. So, and Deep Work's an excellent book. So I think that, and Jordan from Canada, No More Self-Help Books Full of Empty Platitudes. I actually think that a lot of the law of attraction stuff is amazing. I love that stuff. I live by that stuff. I think it's helped me. The only question or clarification that I'd put with, say, the law of attraction is they often say, negativity always leads to negativity, or positivity always leads to positivity. You'll always attract what you are or what you feel. And what I would say is just use the word often. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong about that. I could be very well wrong. But that's how I like to think about it, oftentimes. So that way you realize that there's exceptions to everything. Okay, and 12 rules for life as well. Jordan Peterson bits. I guess, do you highlight some cool Jordan Peterson clips on there? I don't know, but could be cool too. So yeah, that's basically just the main idea is like to always understand both sides of it. That's really the big thing that I would say is that understand the inner, right? A lot of those books focus on the inner, including spiral dynamics, but also focus on the outer, okay? And anything else to add? Guys, thanks very much for checking out this quick video. I just thought I would just throw something quick on Instagram Live just for a little bit of fun. That was from a book, Spiral Dynamics, and a seminar that I did with my friends back in the day. See you guys soon. Thanks for listening.